Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show, I have a passive income expert, really, from Salt Lake City, Utah, calling in from Alaska, Emma Powell. Emma, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. It's good to meet you, Dylan. And we've been talking pre-show, like all sorts of interesting stuff. So it should be a good conversation.
Absolutely. Before we dive in here, I always like to get folks' background, how they got into the real estate space. How'd you get into real estate?
Really, it was to protect ourselves from all the layoffs my husband was experiencing in the IT industry. I was a real estate photographer. I did wedding photography on the weekend, and I was doing some independent contracting as a marketer for a bunch of different startups. And still, even between all that, I was homeschooling 6 kids, and it was supposed to be just like a side hustle, part-time thing. And it was supposed to pay for like family vacations, piano lessons, things like that. And what ended up happening is he got laid off in 2017, and we just felt like adrift. And I realized I had these multiple streams of income going, but none of them were really enough to support the family. Even altogether, they weren't enough to support the family. And I told him, I said, I will never let this happen again. You're basically the sole provider for 6 kids and essentially what amounted to a stay-at-home mom. And even though I was working, I just didn't really feel like the work was worth how much time I was taking away from my kids.
Yeah.
And my mom did a lot of these little cottage businesses when I was growing up, and I felt like it took a lot of time away from the family, and she never made really any money at all. And I felt like that time away was not worth what she was getting paid to take the time away. So she derived a lot of personal fulfillment out of it, and for her that was a thing. And I just got to the point where I was like, do I want to do this for my own personal fulfillment, or do I want to do this to get paid? Do I
Yeah.
want to take this time away from my children to get paid well so that if my husband ever loses his job, I can keep this ship floating for as long as possible? And so when he lost that job in Austin, Texas, we lived there for 20 years. We were in our forever home. We had a little ranch. Like it was, we all loved it, right?
Yeah.
But my husband always said Austin never felt like home. And so when he got laid off, we just cast a wider net. We're willing to move wherever. And we started looking into other cities, and the recruiter from Salt Lake City just, killed it. And he got set up so many interviews. So we drove up there, did a bunch of interviews. He got a job offer within a couple of days. And we packed up and moved up to Salt Lake City. And so because I had left my photography business behind, I was still doing some online work for some of the startups that I was contracting for. But I really had to reinvent myself and find a new career. And with that new feeling in mind, I was like, I better find something that pays really well. And I considered, like, do I go back to school and become an
Yeah.
engineer? Do I go to medical school? Like, what do I want to do here? And investor never really kind of came into the picture there. But I did know that there was freedom in having a bunch of rental houses. And so I was like, maybe we should just start down this long road of buying rental houses one by one until we get there. And what I noticed is when I started welcoming creative finance into my life,
Yep.
getting out of like the Dave Ramsey, you have to pay cash mindset, and getting more into seller financing and getting mentorship through our local real estate association, buying an online course here and there, things like that. when I became more open to creative financing, I was able to, in that very first year, buy 5 houses. And that was going from Austin, where the cost of living is very low. I think we sold our farm. It was 5 acres right off I-35 for
Wow.
440,000, I think it was. It was like a
Yeah.
3,000 something square foot home. And we moved to Utah and we bought a suburban home for like 550. And I was just like, this is a crazy difference in cost of living.
It
I
was
didn't
more
think we were
expensive there.
Oh, Salt Lake was way more expensive. And so the gas was more, food was more. We had state income tax for the first time. Like
Yeah.
I remember telling my husband we were renting when we first got there, and I said, I don't think we're ever going to be able to buy another house again.
Yeah.
But because by the time we sold the Texas house and got the actual money in our bank account from the profit that we made, because it was a gut remodel, we'd done a lot of work on it, a lot of forced equity into it. We had a good profit on that house. By that time, it had been taken a couple of months. I was able to get educated and get into the real estate community. And I was able to say, you know what? I don't have to put all this money into our personal home. He can afford it off the W-2.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
We would lose it if he lost his W-2. We'd have to move, right? But that was already the case in Texas. He lost his W-2 and we had to move. And so I felt like,
Yep.
look, we'll just do that. I'm going to take the rest of this. I'm going to go do some of this creative finance stuff, and I'm going to buy a bunch of rental houses. And like I said, that first year I was able to buy 5 rentals before I kind of ran out of money. And then by that point, I knew a lot of people who were saying you need to raise capital in order to do more and bigger real estate deals, because I wanted that security as fast as possible. And it wasn't like I need the private jet or anything. I just wanted to know that if he got laid off,
You'd
that
have
we were not
another
going to
way.
be at risk. And so and it was my full-time thing. I had left my businesses behind. By that point, I was no longer even contracting online. And so real estate was my full-time gig for quite a while. And I had this fire burning under me because in the industry that we work he was in IT, like you get laid off a lot. And so I really wanted to be prepared, and that security really, really motivated me. But after like the first 2 years, especially once I started syndicating commercial properties with investors, I realized like, oh no, this doesn't just have the power to protect us from a layoff. Like this could retire us way earlier than we thought. I
Yep.
started when I was 40. And we had like that chunk of money from our Texas house. So, I mean, if you want to think about it that way, we started when 35, right? Because that house took some time.
Sure.
But so if you say we started when 35, I finally retired him. I was 46 and he was 48. And I just had this burning goal to retire us before 50. And the last time he got laid off in 2022, I was like, you don't really have to go back to work. So let's just retire. So that's basically the timeline, the reasoning, the timeline, and our motivations behind doing what we did. And real estate was kind of our ticket out of the rat race.
When I think about IT, I think a lot of people are potentially shocked. I'm not, because I'm actually a student in a software engineering boot camp. But I think most people that STEM is like this impenetrable, you're never
Yeah.
going to lose your job type of thing. And that's couldn't be further from the truth,
No.
specifically in the last 10 years, because maybe before 10 years ago, it was very niche, like there wasn't a whole
Mhm.
lot of exposure. Even, and this still unfortunately happens, a lot of the schools that you would go to wouldn't even give you the tool set that you need to be successful on the job. You'd have some like high level theory. But right now, specifically with AI, with the exposure, with the world market, like IT is not impenetrable. Like you can have seasoned career professionals, potentially even in management positions, and they're like, well, we actually think we're overpaying and we can find the same person elsewhere, or we don't need you any longer. So
Yeah.
go figure it out.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
And that's what that taught us, because when he got laid off, he got a great severance because he was actually going to quit. We were just to the point where, like, I think you can quit. And he got laid off like 3 days after he picked a quitting date. And so we're like, great, now we have severance and we have a couple of months to kind of figure out what we're going to do. We launched a business with some partners. Basically, we're the capital raisers for a hard money business that we run with our partners. And so that gave us the opportunity to say, like, hey, we're going to take the severance. We're going to take a couple months. We're going to go on a sabbatical. We have some things to do, right? But to get unemployment, he had to keep applying for jobs. And so for that couple of months he was getting unemployment, he was out there. He had to pound the pavement and look for jobs. And he realized, like, he had his skill set that he had niched into was not as desirable in the wider world. He needed to go back and get some new certifications. He wasn't really enjoying the work anymore, and he couldn't find a job after hundreds of interviews and applications. He didn't have a job offer. And so that was a really eye-opening to us. Like, if you had been laid off and we really had to do this,
well, we do.
We'd be in rough shape right now. And so it went from the 2017 layoff being a panic attack to the 2022 layoff being like a victory lap. And that job search during the unemployment phase was the confirmation that we had done what we needed to do. We completely changed everything between 2017 and 2022 so that when that inevitable happened, we weren't just protected. Now we were winning, we were thriving. And that was such a, that moment of validation was so powerful for me as like a homeschool mom of 6 children who, like I said, was raised by a mom who had a zillion little side hustle, little cottage businesses, to be able to say, like, I not only made enough money to support the family, I retired my husband 15 plus years early.
That's a flex.
Significant. Yeah.
That's a
and
flex.
that boosted confidence that I got from that. Now I struggle with self-doubt constantly. Like, what if this all comes unraveled? What if all comes around? I think that security, because I'm so security minded, and because that's so motivating for me, that's also my greatest fear, right? And so it's not like, yeah, I'm walking on water, we're going to be fine forever. I still am aware and hungry and fighting every single day to make sure that this golden goose keeps on laying.
One of the things, you talk about real estate being a way to have security and to not be dependent on a W-2. I think personally that anybody who's in IT, really any profession period, but specifically IT, should be looking at real estate, or at least have an eye on it. Because if you don't and these things happen, then you have to kind of figure it out on the fly. But you're making enough money in most cases where if you're not putting it into real estate, you're either going to be putting into the market, or you're going to be buying a bunch of stuff materialistically that you may or may not need, as kind of we fall into these habits.
Mm-hmm.
And so
if you're not having like that fire lit under you, or the deadline or whatever,
yeah,
then that can be a thing. But because I had kind of this fake deadline in my head of the next time he gets laid off, I didn't know exactly when that was going to be, but I knew it would happen again. And indeed it did, because in this industry, it's not if, it's when, right? So that kind of even amorphous deadline really motivated me. And he didn't have to be motivated. Like, we were in a partnership, right? So like, he did his thing. He went to work. He did his W-2. He kept the lights on. He paid the mortgage on a stable house for the kids to enjoy. And then I went and did my thing on the side, and I was driven and committed to it, because what had happened to us created that fire burning under us. And so the people who are complacent and they're not really working toward anything, maybe after the first layoff, you might, well, we found another good job, right? But after the second, third layoff, like,
it's like, what in the world?
That security is gone, and you better figure something out. And so we did have a fire burning under us that was very motivating.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Now, I want to pivot a bit here and talk about passive income and then also living a semi-remote lifestyle. You've traveled quite a bit. Before hopping on here, we've mentioned some of the places you've been: Eastern Europe, Hawaii. You're in Alaska right now. I'm jealous. There's multiple different ways that people can live. We talked a little bit about how you could really dive into one home base and make
Mhm.
that your world, but then also someone like myself just really, really likes to travel and to experience
Mhm.
new things. So, in your experience, has that been intentional? Have you been intentional with saying we're going to try different places, and then how did you make that a reality?
With anything, it's just like how I learned real estate. I joined some local clubs. I took a few online courses. I had some social media groups. I just made sure that I spent time with people who were doing the thing that I wanted to be doing. And that was coming from, let's say, homeschooling from years before. When you first start homeschooling, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So you just connect with a tribe of people who are already doing it successfully. And then I zeroed into a particular niche of style of homeschooling we wanted to do. And then I started hanging out with those specialty niche groups. And so other people around us would be like, oh, homeschooling's so risky. You're going to screw up your kids, right? Especially when we kind of blew away the structure and started doing something called unschooling. People were very worried. They're like, you're not even doing books. You're not even making them do math. But what about math? And my daughter just graduated from mechanical engineering school. So it's going to be fine. Math is going to be fine. And so I felt like hanging out with other people who were farther ahead on that journey was how we learned what we were doing. And so we shifted over to a group called the World Schoolers, and they basically will unschool their kids while they're traveling. And so they're giving their kids rich experiences so that when they're ready for career type of academics, when they're a little bit older, they're ready to start going to community college. They've identified some sort of career path, and then you can just lead them into that. But because they have so many experiences to hang each lesson on, it's like they're learning about something in a physics class, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's like that wave pool that we went to at that really cool resort in Mexico. Those types of things come into play, and that's how you educate. And so I felt very secure and very clear on our goals with our kids educationally. And so the world schooling, it was just a matter of hanging out with other people who are doing it. The biggest problem with world schooling was, how do you pay for it? How do you not have a job? How do you travel the world? How do you pay for that? And so watching their career choices and how they were able to finance that was very, very interesting. And I saw a huge proportion of rental home owners, like much higher than the general population, online remote work, entrepreneurship, these types of things. And that really taught us to figure out how to do this. And my mom was raised in the Air Force. And so she was in many, many different states, in several foreign countries. And she had a lack of a home base and a
Yeah.
place where she was from, and kind of the strange accent from living in foreign countries with American parents. And so she really wanted to dig into a community as a young married person. And we never went anywhere, did anything, moved, like not even a lot of vacations, right? And so that was very frustrating for me growing up, because she really craved that connection to community. And what the world schoolers taught us is like, you need a home base. You need a house that you can go back to, even if it's just your parents' house, right? You need a
Yeah.
safe place to go where you're returning year after year, season after season, where they say, I'm from this place. And so that's why we kind of picked Salt Lake City as our home base, and why we're so intentional about it. It's because our kids really like it. Our adult kids are building careers there. It just makes sense. And so we just say we're from Salt Lake City, and we keep going back there again and again. But over the last 3 years, we probably spent 8 months in Salt Lake City, but they still consider themselves from there. We
Home
own
base.
property. That's where the older siblings live. So that's kind of the secret is is digging into a community, and you keep coming back to it. It doesn't have to be your full-time community. And then also just figuring out how to pay for this lifestyle without being tied to a particular work location, and being able to find meaningful work wherever you go. Sometimes that's remote online. What we're doing right now is a local seasonal job that's completely non-real estate related, and it's just like this breath of fresh air. Like I think it was last year when we were back in Salt Lake City, I was trying to help my daughter start a piano lessons business. And they're like, I don't know. I was like, let me show you how it's done. Right. And so I figured I'll get a couple piano students and I'll be able to turn those over to my daughters when we leave again. And so I just put out the ads and things, got a couple of students, but I ended up not turning them over to my daughters because I was having so much fun doing something completely non-real estate related. And when
Yeah.
we got done with the piano lesson, they would just hand me money, which is so different than investing when you might get paid someday down the line. And I was like, I really miss just doing something and then somebody giving me money for it. But I have the freedom to be able to embrace both. Most of our income, a good solid portion of it comes from passive income and investments and things like that.
Yeah.
But then we run this capital raising business where we help investors place their money passively, where we get paid a little bit on owner distributions, and then we get paid a little bit from some fun side hustles that are completely
Unrelated.
different than anything we've ever done. And that has been an eye-opening experience. The multiple streams of income can be related or not related, and that's what has fueled this for us, that we know wherever we go we can find meaningful ways to spend our time and that we can afford it, not in the lap of luxury. I don't want to make it sound like you don't still have to be conscious and even to a certain point frugal, right? But at the same time, it's a trade-off that you make for a lifestyle that is of your own making and your own design, and we're creatively executing how we're getting that done.
When I think of businesses where you're paying cash, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like when I go get my hair cut. And
Yeah.
every time I kind of have this thought, like, actually, like, this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, I wonder how much barbers make. And I'm thinking, like, well, who owns this place and how do they make money? And are they charging per chair or are these people on a salary? Like, how does this
Mhm.
work? And there's really not too many other things that are like that. And of course, owning restaurants isn't easy. So that's a cash business, but owning restaurants is difficult. But then you have some of these other things like, car wash. I feel like we're seeing car washes all over the place, and there's a new high-tech car wash everywhere. And so some of these
Yeah.
cash-heavy businesses are really attractive, and of course, real estate people are buying businesses, so there's a lot of
Mhm.
overlap there, actually.
I do like the closed-ended nature of what we're doing because I feel like the capital raising business that's open-ended, we're going to be doing that for many years to come. And so having some closed-ended stuff like I will teach piano lessons for the next 6 months while we're in Utah, or we're working in the tourism industry right now, the cruise ship industry right now in Alaska, and that's going to last for 6 months and then we're done. And we can choose to go back to Salt Lake, we can choose to go somewhere else. But the fact is humans live in a seasonal way,
Yeah.
and the circadian rhythms, you know this from sleep hacking, that those rhythms and that is so important to our health. And so having this kind of open-ended thing where I just go to this office every day for years and years and years, even in high school, even though they're going to a box every single day, the same location, spending hours and hours a day in this very small
Yeah.
footprint, they know at the end of 12th grade they're moving on. And as adults in corporate especially, we don't have that feeling of saying like I know what's coming next. And so what ends up happening is when you retire early and you finally kind of figure out the income part of it, you go through this desert period of like I don't know where to go or what to do with myself. So I am really enjoying the closed-ended nature of work that has a final point. It's not just a business I have to run forever or a job I have to do forever. It's like I'm going to do this thing for this period of time and then I'm going to move on. And that really feeds the biological need of a human to be seasonal and cycling through different things.
Hacking that can be just as important as the part beforehand, right? We don't think about it
Mhm.
until we get there sometimes.
Yep.
Emma, we are coming up on time here. Where can folks go to learn more about what you're doing, or maybe get in touch with you?
Yeah, go to investwithemma.com. It's the easiest way to get a time on my calendar and just talk. If you're an investor and you want to passively invest with us, like that would be somebody that would love to talk to and get you involved in our investor portal. Look at the deals that we have. You can kind of pick and choose between them. You don't have to invest in everything that we do. But it's one of those things where we can get you on the path to making some passive income and then introduce you into the world of private investing where there are many, many other people and ways that you can diversify putting your money in. Just making those introductions I think is very important to me. And I think it's also really important. I want to be that person in passive income, like what we found in the homeschooling community, what we found in the real estate community, where it's I want to show people this is what I'm doing, this is what's working for us. And I want to be part of that journey for the listener to say, like, I want to retire early. Even if you choose to keep working, it doesn't matter. You could retire early if you needed to. I want to be that person in that community of passive income, early retired people that you can have an actual case study of people who are really doing this. All of my partners are already retired on passive income. And so I feel like we're not just selling this dream to try and get investors into our portal. Like, we're actually doing it. And we are really enjoying creating that community and that sounding board for our investors to say, like, all right, how do I do this? And here we are doing it together.
Emma, thank you so much for coming on the show here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dylan. Always fun conversation. Love talking about this stuff.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.